Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 876. This is Mike Matthews broadcasting from Cafe Anyway here at the last place on earth located somewhere in Podcaster Valley. Today, the return of the much-loved feature, This is Interesting, where we look at some very interesting news you didn't know about having to do with Korea. Yes, Seth Rogen is involved again. Plus, we hear from Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And Brewmaster. There's so many layers.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
To the show. I've got this interesting friend who I guess is interested in seeing me again get into the dating world, though that is not where I am. I want a little piece from pretending who I am land. He said, you should try fill in the blank of a useless dating service here.
Mike's Daily Podcast.com.
I said, is there really some part of me that's wrong that needs to be fixed, I fear?
Mike's
that needs to bend
Daily
to the whim
Podcast
of someone who will only
Yeah!
make me sick? He had no answer to that. See, I don't want to date or have to find someone on the freaking internet. That's not my deal right now. Look who just walked in. Hi, Mike. It's Benita, the rodeo queen. How y'all doing?
It's a disgruntled fiddle player, tell you what.
What?
What's the matter with y'all? Being alone, being all like Unabomber or Howard Hughes-ish. Mike, you need to go and find somebody right now, toot sweet.
Toot sweet. Wow. I never thought I'd hear you use that expression. That's kind of French. Let me have a little water.
Mike, are you okay?
I'm alright. Look who else just walked in.
Hello there, Mike. I make the root beer. I'm the brewmaster. Oh, boy.
Brewmaster, please give me some of your root beer right now.
All right, I'm pouring you some.
Oh, wow, that actually looks drinkable. Nope, it's not drinkable. Yuck.
Mike, anyway, you shouldn't be alone, y'all.
All right, well, speaking of water and being alone and root beer, and, well, I don't know if you've heard the news, but apparently the big news is some fresh water of some sort has been, there was an inflatable dam. Yes, we have inflatable dams here in the Bay Area, which is basically a bunch of this, it's like big, huge sandbags. It's like one long, huge sandbag is what it is that holds back water. I have taken Basil the Boxer on many walks where this took place in Fremont near Niles, and it is not as big a deal as the media is blowing it up to be. Perhaps you're hearing stories that it's like the end of the world here in California. We've lost all our water. All is lost. All right, well, I've walked Basil around this area, and it is basically a huge creek that's running out to the bay anyway. It's this massive creek running out to the bay, and they have it dammed in some parts. Well, I did not know this, but I guess some of those dammed parts don't actually feed people water. It feeds the soil water, I guess, underneath. It goes through filters, some kind of situation like that. But it's not actually drinking water. If you saw this, you'd be like, oh, that's just a creek running out to the bay. Anyway. And they make this big, huge deal about it. And it's this big, shocking news story. And it's ridiculous. The local journalistic world here is just a joke. Thank you. That's what I have to say about that. Most local news is a joke. It's just a bunch of people that want a beauty contest somewhere along the line getting in front of the camera. Look at me. Look at my beautifully combed hair. Look at me. Oh, my gosh. Have you counted the amount of breast implantage we have on the local news stations all around the country? Hey, it's the 11 o'clock news with breast implant Barbie. And they just read off the teleprompter. They have no brains. I do not think those people should have vandalized that dam. But then again, why do you have a big sandbag dam anyway? Why don't you build a real dam, Fremont? By the way, I got a job in Fremont. Yeah, I just did. I'm looking forward to it. Yay. But yeah, so I think all is not lost. Just a lot of water is going out to the bay that really wasn't there wasn't a system set up to really keep that water anyway, which maybe says that we should do a better job holding on to water that is coming out of the mountains. I've said that over and over again on this podcast, that we just sort of when it rains here in the Bay Area, we're just like, oh yeah, it rained a lot, but we're still in a drought. We don't catch any of that water. And here in the Bay Area, we're such like sustainable thinking, progressive thinking people. Why don't we think of something for that? I do my little part. I try and catch as much water. I put out little containers around the backyard and stuff. But we should be doing this in a massive scale. Anyway, cafe anyway. This brings us to the segment.
Ridiculous random posts.
There are some really weird random posts going on right now on social media about this situation. One person echoing what I said, why would you build a dam out of plastic in the first place? And then this one, people are just saying ridiculous things about California. Like, why are you living in a place that's a desert? Who cares how much water you lose? Somebody commented, those people that did the vandalism to that dam should go to prison and pay all the water they have wasted. They used it. They pay it. And this person wrote, here 1 minute, gone the next. Between fracking, the drought, oil spills, and goodness knows what else, folks in California may as well move east. They may just find more water in the desert. Sad face emoji. Hope things change for them soon. Strength to all affected. Blessings, heart emoji. And then so you get the impression that people are just laughing at Californians right now. This is what they're using it. California is in a drought and it's bad, very bad. And then someone or some things go and do this. How low can you go? Apparently they set the bar.
Mark, so what you're saying is this isn't a big deal.
No, but the media is.
Kind of like you're media and you're making a big deal about it.
I'm making a big deal of the fact that people are making a big deal about it.
Well, why don't you just stop?
All right, I'll stop. Let's move on to something else. Mark, so tell me why y'all don't want to go on internet dating service. It just, I did it. It sucked. The girl that I dated, she ended up being like just we were not compatible. And I got the feeling from the other women that I talked to using the internet dating that it was not for me. And I don't like the fakeness. You're just trying to be something you're not. You just can't be yourself. It takes all the excitement out of life. No thanks. Mark, I don't need the internet dating service because I found the Disgruntled Fiddle Player and we're in love.
That's right, Mike. We're in love.
Well, how do you guys do that? Okay. Well, that's great. Well, if you're in love, let me know. Email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. Did you use the internet dating service? Did that work for you? Are you happy to hear about Californians wasting more water because of vandalism? Are you upset at the media for making a big deal over things they don't get the right information about, and they just do that a lot, and the local media relies on popularity contest people? What do you think about all that? Email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. We read your comments on the section emails from email and your and not so comments. You can comment at facebook.com/mikesdailypodcast, also on Twitter @Mike Talks. And let me know if you'd like to be a guest on the show or if you'd like to sponsor the show. Mike, I can't wait to rush home and watch my favorite local bubble-headed beach blonde with big boobies on the 11 o'clock news. Bye, strange obsessions. And also you can listen to the show on iTunes, a link to where to do that. And if you do that, make sure to rate the show and comment on the show so more people find out about us and we don't languish in obscurity. So that maybe someday 50,000 people will actually download one of my episodes. 50,000. That's how many you need in order to get like sponsors, basically. That's never going to happen for this show. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because, well, you're listening. Or maybe there's no one listening. Yeah, this is probably more what it's like. Not a dang soul listening to the show. Oh well. Anyway, cafe anyway. You can also hear this show on YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podomatic, Mixcloud, Spreaker, Player FM, Ameristream Live. I'm also doing the morning show on a Connecticut radio station. You can hear that weekdays, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. A link to that, as well as a link to the country station that I am on weekends. Links to those, as well as where to tell your friends about this show through Instagram, Yelp, and Tumblr. Find us on all those places. And there's also the podcast picture, my blog, and all my past interviews there at mikesdailypodcast.com. Ooh, if you want to help us out too, go to the Amazon link that you find at mikesdailypodcast.com. If you go to that Amazon link anytime you buy anything on Amazon, go through mikesdailypodcast.com, and that helps us out.
This is interesting.
Wow, this is interesting.
And I cried like I cried for you, and Balloon Man blew up in my hand. Balloon
The wonderful Robin Hitchcock with Balloon Man. Speaking of Balloon Men, a South Korean activist has launched thousands of copies of the Hollywood film The Interview into North Korea by balloon, ignoring dire threats of reprisals from Pyongyang. The Capitol has labeled the Seth Rogen comedy about a fictional CIA plot to assassinate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un a wanton act of terror. A North Korean defector turned activist, Lee Min-bok, said he had carried out 4 cross-border balloon launches since January. On each occasion, he tied bundles carrying copies of The Interview and anti-Pyongyang leaflets to helium balloons, which he then released from the back of a truck. Quote, I launched thousands of copies and about 1 million leaflets near the western part of the border. All the launches were carried out at night with little or no advance publicity, given the sensitivity on both sides. North Korea has long condemned the cross-border launchers and demanded that the South Korean authorities step in to prevent them. Last October, North Korea border guards attempted to shoot down some balloons, triggered a brief exchange of heavy machine gun fire between the two sides. This according to the Filipino newspaper Phil-Am Star. Pyongyang issued some particularly stern warnings against any effort to include copies of The Interview in the balloon bundles, saying that any challenge to its just physical countermeasures will trigger merciless retaliatory strikes. It stands accused by the FBI of being behind a devastating cyber attack that happened last November on Sony Pictures, the studio behind the movie. While appealing to activists to avoid overly provoking the North, Seoul insists their actions are protected by freedom of expression principles. Police have intervened to prevent some launches, but only when there is a prospect of North Korean retaliation that might endanger residents living near the balloon launch sites. Lee's launches, by the way, were done at night in remote locations, and though they were monitored by local police, no move was made to stop him. He said, the police would have no right to stop me from doing this. I am always being tailed by the police, he says.
Even though she walks around in high heel shoes, all I know is I'm the one who pays her price. Man, she's no lady, she's my way.
The wonderful Lyle Lovett. She's no lady. And this lady is no lady. Former Korean Air Executive Vice President Heather Cho was released from prison today after an appeals court found her not guilty of changing an aircraft route in the infamous nut rage case. She'd been in prison since a district court sentenced her to 1 year behind bars. This was in December, convicting her of risking flight safety by ordering pilots to change a plane's route at JFK International Airport in New York. The Seoul High Court, however, overturned the ruling and sentenced her to 10 months in prison, suspended for 2 years. She changed clothes about 30 minutes after the ruling, made her way through a crowd of cameramen without saying anything, and jumped into a car to return home. Cho was cleared of charges of changing the flight route, but was not found guilty of committing acts of violence against flight attendants. She was indicted for ordering a plane bound for Incheon to return to the gate from a taxiing area at JFK on December 5th and kicking a chief flight attendant off the plane because she was dissatisfied when a junior attendant served her macadamia nuts in a bag, not on a plate. Yes, in a bag and not on a plate. She is definitely not a lady.
She's no lady. She's mine. Well,
as we go outside of Cafe Anyway here at the last place on earth located somewhere in Podcastro Valley.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And the picture is of a cartoon, actually, of Bison Bentley and I, and we're discussing the fact that it was told to me that you need to have at least 50,000 downloads as a podcast to be considered viable. And Bison Bentley, who's out here with me on the patio of Cafe Anyway, Bison Bentley, you had what to say about that?
Mike, I had to say that I can't believe there's at least 50,000 people that know what a podcast is. Do you know that?
Yeah, well, some people still don't. But yeah, so 50,000 people, that's a lot. And it makes me go, I have a long way to actually have a viable podcast. But you know what? I'm going to keep doing this podcast. Dang it. Next show, I'm really happy to have a very special guest in my Into an Interview segment. We'll have a new Into an Interview, and I'll be speaking with the band from California. Actually, not too far away from here. They're from like the area north of Santa Cruz. Not too far away from us here in the Bay Area. The band, the Orange Peels, are going to be here. Plus, we're going to hear from Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!